So welcome to this training where I'm going to be talking about this topic, ME/CFS recovery, can brain training help? If you are watching live, just say hello in the chat. If you're watching the replay, just put #replay. And so I'm going to share some slides and I'll just want to share that this video is the third in a series. Okay, so in the first video, from fear to trust, actually focused on working with physical sensations. In the second video, I talked about this topic, sensitivity without reactivity, and that was more focusing on working with emotions. So in this video, I am going to focus more on the brain training side of things. So working with thoughts, beliefs, feelings, behaviors. It's not going to exclude working with sensations, as you'll see, but there is a focus on the brain training side of things. Okay, so what I'd like you to consider is that up until not so long ago, in fact, in the year 2000, scientists believed that the adult brain didn't change. And some seminal research by a researcher called Eleanor Maguire from University College London, she studied the brains of black cab drivers. If you've watched some of my videos before, you'll know I've talked about this. And what she found is the brains of black cab drivers were more highly developed compared to that of the general public. Have a guess how many streets black cab drivers in London have to memorize as part of learning what they call the knowledge. So put your guess in the chat. How many streets do you think they have to memorize? I've got a friend who's a black cab driver and I've tested him, and his knowledge, his memory of streets is absolutely amazing. So pop a guess in the chat. What number? It doesn't matter if you get it right or wrong, but just have a guess, see what you think. So, as I say, what she found is that a part of their brain called the hippocampus, which is responsible for memory and spatial and awareness, was enlarged compared to the general public. So brain training is this idea that actually using our brain, we can retrain, rewire the brain. Okay, actually the term brain training is possibly a little bit of a misnomer. There's a book by Sharon Begley, who's a health journalist. She talked to the Dalai Lama, she talked to scientists, and she talks about this idea of training your mind to change your brain. Okay, so if you think about it, your brain is a little bit like a computer. Your computer has software installed on it. For instance, there's a word processing software, you've got an internet browser, but you're the operator. You decide which software program you're going to use. You decide how you're going to use the internet. You could use it for fun or pleasure or learning, okay? And it's the same kind of relationship between your mind and your brain. Your mind decides what software to install, and your brain just runs the programs. So for example, if you think about social situations, if you like, using that analogy, you've got a program for social situations. So I remember working with a client who had a phobia about being in social situations. She's a very accomplished person. She was a senior civil servant, but she found social situations very challenging. Okay, so she had a program which was that social situations are a bit scary, whereas someone else might say social situations are fun. So Don says, I keep changing my mind on how many streets, lol. So just give us a guess. Give us both your guesses, or however many guesses you came up with. So don't be shy. I know people are a bit hesitant to, have a go, but it's not life or death. It's just for fun. So have a go. Let me know what you think. And I will tell you in a minute, if necessary, remind me. I remember working with another client who was saying that when her and her husband went for a meal, she'd look at the menu and she'd get stressed because she didn't have a process for deciding what to choose. Okay, whereas her husband would look at the menu and unconsciously he'd just make a decision about what felt good in his stomach, what he fancied eating, maybe what he'd had for lunch. And for him it was easy process, but the food would come and then she would be looking what he was eating, which might be a steak. I think he said he was having a steak the previous night, and she was starting to feel envious and wanted some of his food, which he found a bit annoying. Okay, so Donna West says 50. Okay, you've got to add lots more numbers to that. The answer is 25,000. All right. So they have to memorize 25,000 streets. That's absolutely amazing, isn't it? Okay, so consider that. Someone might have a program for how they decide what food to eat. And for some people, it might result in stress. And some people, like me, it is an enjoyable experience. Okay, so I want to share a core principle. When I train people doing my building resilience training, I teach 7 core concepts around neuroplasticity and brain training. But I want to share a key one with you. Donna says, goodness gracious, that's a lot. It is a lot. Okay. So, yeah, I want to share a key concept with you, which is one of the outcomes of that research that I was just talking about is that whatever we practice, we get good at. Okay, so black cab drivers get really good at memorizing streets, but other people get really good at generating anxiety and panic. Okay, and certainly that was one thing I did when I had ME/CFS. So I want you to consider that our responses can either be helpful or unhelpful. So this equation, E plus R equals O. E is the event, R is the response, and O is the outcome. So how we respond to an event depends on how we interpret the event. So for example, if a person was, let's say they were in Kenya in the on safari and a lion started running towards them, would everyone feel scared? What's your answer to that question? Would everyone feel scared if they saw a lion running towards them? Now, if you said yes, that's completely understandable, but consider if you go onto YouTube, there are videos of people cuddling lions, playing with lions. There's one video about 2 chaps in London who bought a lion cub from Harrods, which is ridiculous really, and had this lion, would take it to the park, and then they realised that it was getting too big and they needed to take it back to Kenya, and they took it to a place which was for animals that had been abandoned, etc. And when they went back to visit, this lion ran down the hill and gave them a big hug. All right. So not everyone would respond with fear, but it's understandable if you do. So our responses, our emotions, our thoughts, our beliefs, our feelings, our behaviours, okay, can become conditioned. Okay. So, before I had ME/CFS, I was very good at generating anxiety. So when I had ME/CFS and fibromyalgia, I was still good at generating anxiety. So problem with that is that I would respond to, for example, symptoms as if there was a tiger in the room. Okay, So I'd experience the symptom, I'd catastrophize, I'd say I'm never going to get well. Obviously this is understandable if you find it challenging to deal with symptoms. I did talk about that in the videos I just mentioned, so check those out. Problem is that responding in that way activates the fight-flight response, and this hinders recovery. Okay, literally puts the brakes on our healing and recovery. So let's look at what's happening on a neuroplastic level. So in this diagram, the black neuron is what we call the stimulus neuron, and the red and green neurons are what we call the response neurons. So in this diagram, we could either respond in an unhelpful way or a helpful way. And the little yellow ball is a signal. That signal travels along that neuron, and depending on what decision we make, it might move towards the red or the green neuron. If we keep practicing going down the red pathway, that signal travels along the black neuron, it jumps across to the red neuron, and we feel unhappy, stressful, etc. And if we keep practicing it, those neurons get thicker, and therefore we can generate that response more quickly. And the green neuron moves further away, so it's more difficult to do that response. Okay, and that wiring, the green helpful response, gets thinner, and therefore it makes it even more difficult to do that response. So what's happening is we learn to generate more fear instead of generating trust. And in a sense, our operating system can shift. Maybe some people, sometimes they're coming from a place of fear, sometimes they're coming from a place of trust. But based on what we've just been talking about, whatever we practice, we get good at. If we're practicing generating fear type responses, then the fear can become more dominant. Okay, the fear can take over, and it can get to the point where we don't even have a sense that there's a part of us that has the capacity to operate from trust. But that part of you is there. Okay, it's just become dormant. All right, and there is some good news, and we'll get to that good news in a moment. But consider that if we keep practicing those fear type responses, we can be very good at generating fear. For some people, they're very good at being self-critical, hypervigilant. Some people become overachievers, perfectionists, people pleasers as ways of dealing with their discomfort. Now, I said there's some good news. The good news is that we have the capacity, we have the ability to be aware, to have awareness, to bring consciousness to the situation. So we have the ability to spot patterns. Okay, so for example, I notice every time I get a symptom, I start catastrophizing. Okay, I start chastising myself for overdoing it. Okay, we have that conscious ability to spot patterns, and that gives us power to make choices. Okay, so we can choose, we can recognize that we have options and have choices. We can choose which door we walk through. Okay, and for example, if we walk through one door and we realize, okay, that's not the door I really choose to walk down, we don't have to keep going down that pathway, going through the next door, even more, generating more anxiety and stress. We can actually, in this diagram, turn left or turn right. We can make different choices. Okay, so consider that even though our brain can be wired so that we get really good at generating stress, anxiety, we have the power of choice. Okay, so I call this the zone of power. Okay, let's say the stimulus is a traffic jam, we still have the choice as to whether we generate frustration and upset and calm. Now, of course, it's easier to generate frustration and upset if that's what we've been doing and practicing that, because the wiring gets stronger, as we've already talked about. However, we have that ability to make a choice. All right. And if we do that, then even though going down that red pathway is easy, going down the green pathway is less easy because it's further away, it's not as strong. By applying our conscious ability to choose, we can change our responses. And I want to share a 3-step system for doing that. So the first step is to connect to the part of you that has the capacity for trust. Okay? There is a part of you that is wise, has the capacity for patience, pragmatism. Pragmatism is a really important skill to cultivate, okay, or quality, okay, because the pragmatist is able to see the bigger picture, keep things in perspective. All right. So we can connect to that part of us. What I invite you to do right now is to close your eyes, and I'll guide you through a little process. Actually, tell you what, let me do that in a moment. Let me just talk you through the components, and then we'll actually put this into practice. So when we connect to that part of us that is wise, we can actually start to shrink the part of us that operates from fear. Okay? So we connect to that part of us that has the capacity for wisdom, the capacity for patience, pragmatism, acceptance, calm, compassion, trust. And we can also connect to that part of us that has the capacity to become the observer. So there's a picture of Albert Einstein. If you guessed who that was, well done. But consider that a scientist takes a neutral perspective. They have curiosity. They observe what's going on in a neutral way. Okay, so I invite you to consider that you have the capacity to become the neutral observer of your experience. That can take practice. Okay, and then the second step is to make a choice, to choose to go down that more helpful pathway. As we've said to begin with, that can be more effort because it's easier to go down that old pathway. All right, so it takes that commitment to actually, I want to change this pattern because I recognize it no longer serves me. Okay, and then the third step is to create a new response and to practice this new response until it becomes your default pattern. So as I say, before I had ME/CFS, when I had ME/CFS, I was a very anxious person, or I was very good at generating anxiety. But by practicing these techniques, I learned to become rubbish at generating anxiety. That's not to say that I'm never going to experience any anxiety. There are moments, when I'm setting up for this live call that something goes wrong. In the past, I think this happened last week, I would have generated a lot of anxiety because I had some technical issue. But because I've trained myself, I was able to say, look, I've got 2 minutes to sort this out before I have to go live. I can do that in a stress state, or I can do that in a relaxed state. It's not going to make, the outcome's going to be the same, although if I'm stressed, I might be thinking less clearly. So just by calming myself, knowing, okay, I'll deal with it. If I have to start late, I have to start late. actually I was able to just calm my physiology. Okay, so one of the things I encourage people to do is to practice, for instance, for 1 minute every day, the new response that you want. Okay, we'll come back to that. And what I'd suggest is that you have a superpower that's going to help you create a new response. And that superpower is the ability to reframe. So reframing is the ability to see things in more helpful ways. So if I'm stuck in a traffic jam, then I could just say, well, this is something I can't influence. I might as well use this time just to look at the clouds or to have a think or listen to the radio. How often do people say, I wish I had 5 minutes to just do nothing? Well, this is your opportunity if you're sitting in a traffic jam. Okay? So let me walk you through those steps. So I invite you right now to just close your eyes. Obviously only close your eyes if it is safe to do so. All right? And I invite you just to connect to that part of you that has the capacity for wisdom. You might call that part of you your best self, your wise self, your authentic self, your true self, your whole self. You can call it one of those words, or you might call it something else. Okay? But I'd like you to just consider that there's a part of you that has that capacity to respond to a challenging situation with wisdom and all those qualities that I've mentioned already. I'd suggest to you that you have responded in that way many times in your life. You were faced with a challenging situation, or maybe someone close to you was dealing with a challenging situation, and you just responded in a resourceful way. You were able to respond with wisdom and compassion and calm, patience and acceptance and trust. You maybe exhibited other useful qualities. How often do you remind yourself that you have had those kind of experiences? What would it be like if you spent a moment every day just connecting to that best version of you? Reminding yourself of 1, 2 or 3 times where you responded in resourceful ways. So that's the first step, is to connect to that best version of yourself. And from that place, you can now just connect to that part of you that sometimes operates from fear. You might imagine that part of you as your child self or your wounded self. And it's your job just to take care of that child. Say, I'm here. We've got this. We're going to deal with this together. I'm here for you. You might just notice how that child self responds to you reassuring it. The next step is to choose your response. Just to recognize, to bring awareness to the situation. This is a pattern that I run. For example, when I experience a symptom, I catastrophize. Up until now, that has been my pattern. I now choose a new path. And then we create. Step 3 is to create a new response. And you can say to yourself, even though I have this sensation, I am safe. So for example, if you notice when you experience a symptom, you respond with fear. We're going to use the word sensation. I encourage you to use that word if it feels good. For me, the word sensation is less emotive than symptom. So you might say, even though I have this sensation, right now I am safe. There is no tiger in the room. Okay, so you might add some more sentences, but that's just the simple sentence. Even though I have this sensation, right now I am safe. I choose to connect to my best self, or whatever you want to call that part of you. Okay? You may just take a few breaths. Just really absorb, feel into that notion that right now it's okay for me to relax, to soften, to let go. So I'll give you another example. Let's say that you've overdone it and you're chastising yourself. Again, first step, connect to that best self. Just really feel into that best version of you. Breathe in. As you breathe in and out, just allow your mind and body to relax. You might breathe through your nose into your belly. As you breathe out, allowing your out breath to be a little bit longer than your in breath. Connect to that best version of you, just reminding yourself of maybe one time where you just responded in a resourceful way. You connect to that part of you that is doing that fear response, chastising yourself. And from that position of that best you, you just say, it's okay. You're going to now choose, bring awareness. Recognize again, this is a pattern. Maybe this is a pattern that I've practiced many times. I now choose a new path. And now we're going to create a new response. We're going to reframe. We're going to say, even though I overdid it, I am okay. Actually, I am awesome. I am amazing. I am lovable. Whatever it is you want to say to yourself. I choose to connect to my best self. I remind myself there is no tiger in the room. I choose to allow my mind, my body, my physiology to relax. Okay, so I invite you, if you have got your eyes closed, when you're ready, to just bring yourself back. And feel free to let me know in the chat, how did you find doing that, following those 3 steps, which is a simplified version of what I teach. So Donna says, reframing is a great idea. Yeah, so really useful tool. Okay. So, all right, so consider that when we do this, we start to make the shift from fear. Oops, sorry, let's go. Oh yeah, sorry, I went back. So let's just skip. So when we practice that, the useful wiring gets stronger, the unhelpful wiring gets thinner, moves further away. Okay. So when we do that, we start to make the shift from the fear operating system, being fearful, self-critical, hypervigilant, being the overachiever, perfectionist, people pleaser, which are all fear-based responses, to connecting more to that part of us that is wise, that part of us that is calm, the part of us that has the capacity to be the neutral observer. Okay, we start to make the shift from believing that at some level, maybe not consciously, but it's an unconscious response, that we're in danger, there's a tiger in the room, to actually, it's not a tiger, it's a pussycat. Okay, so maybe I've got these symptoms, but it's okay, I can manage them, I can handle it. Okay. And when we do that, we can rewire from being in fear to being trust dominant. Okay, the part of us that operates from trust plays a more important role. Okay, and that part of us can actually take care of the part of us that operates from fear, and that fear part doesn't have to take over. So for example, I still have moments where I generate some anxiety or fear, but I have more resourcefulness. Okay, have more capacity to handle those feelings, those thoughts, those beliefs, and shift them. All right, I have made another video where I talk about a simple method, so I might post the link below this video. Feel free to remind me. It's a very simple way of responding to thoughts that are more useful. But ultimately what we're doing here is that we are training ourselves that it's possible for you to be in the driving seat and use your mind to change your brain and change your experience, your physiology, and to influence your healing. So if you've got any comments, questions about that, pop them in the chat. I'd love to know what your takeaway is. If you would like a PDF of the summary of those steps, then type the words steps in the video, below the video, and as soon as it's ready, I will send you the link. Got any questions, let me know. Love to know what your takeaway is, so feel free to pop that in the chat. And if you're watching, do like, subscribe, share if you found it useful. Donna says steps. So as soon as that's ready, I will send you the link to that. So if you'd like to know more about what I do, then get in touch. I run a training program called Building Resilience. I've just started the group course, which is 12 weeks. It's not too late to join if you'd like to join. So if you'd like to know more about that, put the word group in the chat. You can do the 12-week course as an online self-study course. Okay, so if you've got any questions, get in touch. But otherwise, thanks for watching. Keep going. Wishing you great health. Bye for now.